Hello everybody, this is AK. I'm back. So this past Sunday I produced two videos, and the video that talked about how Singapore is expensive only if we were to buy a private property and a car got many comments. Some of them in agreement, and quite a few disagreed with my perspective. And it is good to have different opinions, right? Because it throws light on an issue which would affect different people in different ways. And someone told me, well, if you have children, you realize how expensive it is. And well, I've always known that having children would be expensive, right? And I've blog posted on this subject before, how it would probably cost us somewhere in between $250,000 to $400,000 to bring up a child all the way till he graduates from university. So that's not unexpected, right? And someone also said about how we can't always be eating from in hawker centers and buying only food from the economic rice stores because it's quite unhealthy. And the fish soup rice, for example, costs $6, $7. It's not like the $3 meals that I said I would have. Which is of course from the economic rice stores. Well, and someone also said that we can't always go to polyclinics, and we go to private clinics, those cost a lot more. I think they are all yes and no, because if we want to have fish soup rice, right, we can always prepare it at home. Right, and if we are sick, I don't see anything wrong with going to a polyclinic. In my retirement, polyclinics, I go quite frequently, for my blood tests, and the blood test costs at $15 every 6 months, and I even go to them for my dental cleaning, once a year, and that costs like $50 per visit. If you go to a private dentist outside, I think it will easily cost you $100 or more per visit, just for scaling and polishing. Singapore is not a welfare state, but many things are subsidized, especially education and healthcare. And as Singaporeans, we should enjoy those subsidies. And polyclinics, well, that's one of the places we can get our subsidies. And if we don't make full use of that, I mean, we shouldn't complain, I know this video, I'll probably get a lot of comments in this that disagree with what I've said again, but that's fine. We can always have civil discussion, right? A civil debate. But I would appreciate if people don't scold me or don't flame me, right? For example, I got this comment from a viewer that was really scolding me, right? Typical attitude of those who live in their ivory tower. He was scolding Akela living in an ivory tower. You talk like one of those ministers. Go tell those low-income earners that Singapore is not expensive. Of course, you are going to say it is their fault for having a low income. Low income just don't buy expensive things. Everything is related. It's like those people who say that it does not matter how high petrol price goes, because they do not drive. Not their problem, right? So I can tell from that comment that the person was very angry, right? And well, sometimes people get emotional, but my reply was, well, if people suffer financially because of disabilities, we should help them, right? However, if the suffering is self-inflicted, they should not blame other people. They should reflect on what they have done, which have caused them to have a problem, and think how not to do the same thing again, not to make the same mistake again. right? Many necessities in Singapore are already heavily subsidized. It's like education and healthcare are the two most important items that come to mind. Heavily subsidized, like I said just now, the polyclinics, right? The subsidies are possible because of tax revenue, which low-income people contribute very little to, right? Because their income so low, they hardly get taxed. And rather than say people like me, people like AK live in ivory towers, which is hardly fair or helpful, why not educate low-income people to free themselves from wage slavery? Which is why our late Mr. Lee Kuan Yew believed so much in empowering the population through good quality education, which is why Singapore schools are heavily subsidized, and we pay very little in school fees unless we want to go to autonomous school or some private school or international schools. Okay, so there are always options available. So I would say, why are people poor? The reason is very simple. It doesn't matter how much money we make. We can make $50,000 a month, $5,000 a month, or $100,000 a month. It doesn't matter how much we make. We are poor if we overextend ourselves financially. And what happens is our expenses are too high and we have no savings, right? Or worse, we are in debt. So it's not how much money we make, but how much money we save that will determine whether we have any money, right? So like I said before, a person making $50,000 can be poorer than a person making $5,000 a month, because a person making $50,000 per month, if he spends every single cent of it every month, or in fact more, use a credit card and spend $60,000 a month, he'll be poorer than a person who makes $5,000 a month but saves $3,000 a month, right? And in my blog and now my YouTube channel, I always tell people how we can stop being a wage slave and how we should work towards financial freedom. I like to think that's more constructive, and my story is inspirational, so that regular people can become financially free one day, or at least become financially more secure over time, right? It doesn't help to produce content, right? To just keep banging the fact that many people feel that Singapore is very expensive, and then you pander to their feelings, make them feel justified for being angry. It just fans the flames of this content. I don't like producing contents like this because it doesn't help. It's not helpful, right? It just makes the problem worse. Right, I remember a fellow blogger when I was just starting out as a blogger many years ago, and a fellow blogger who was more established would always complain about the ruling party in Singapore and how the government is high-handed, how Mr. Lee Kuan Yew was very high-handed and out of touch with the population. And he always complaining about high cost of living in Singapore. Yes, even in those days, there were people complaining. Right, and I remember I asked him, so how much income tax was he paying? Because he would always talk about the tax relief he was getting for having children, right? And he proudly said that he paid nothing in income tax. That was the answer I was waiting for, because I immediately said, well, I pay income tax and you don't pay income tax. I should be the one complaining, but I wasn't complaining. Yeah. So why should he be complaining when he pays zero taxes, right? Okay, that's just AK being cheeky lah. Okay, bad AK. I mean, many benefits that he got as a citizen I didn't get. I wasn't able to buy a BTO flat either because I was single, and back in those days, singles were not allowed to buy BTO HDB flats, right? So I worked to solve my own problem, and I bought my first home. It's a condo, right? I waited for an opportunity to buy when Mr. Market was feeling depressed, and I paid what I thought was a fair price, right? I didn't blame people for my problems, right? So don't play the blame game. It doesn't solve any problem. Blaming people, right? Complaining will attract some assistance sometimes, but it is rarely helpful and it's a waste of energy. So if you know people like this, try talking to them, But if they don't listen well, you can bring a horse to water. You can't force them to drink, right? So if AK can talk to himself, so can you. Bye bye.